All right, now into our Coffee Court discussions this morning. Well, with our Coffee Court discussion today, we're going to be looking at the future of the small and medium-sized enterprises in the financial year 2022-2023. The businesses in Uganda, mainly the SMEs, that is small and medium enterprises in the country, is one that shapes our economy today. And speaking of which, we've got a number of both illiterate and literate Ugandans falling under the SMEs sector, with 90% of the business community falling under that particular sector of the small and medium-sized enterprises. However, the fate of many of these businesses is undoubtedly not going to stay for long. Reason being, there is a lot of inflation in the country. Now, when you look at the fate of these businesses amid the inflation in the country, is where our discussions of the Coffee Court today are. We need to understand more of where and how are these SMEs going to survive, with the president of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, John Walugembe Kakungulu, giving us an insightful discussion on how the SMEs can survive during such a time of inflation. Better yet, what are those answers that need to be pursued? Where are the challenges mainly? What loopholes are supposed to be covered up? These are more of the discussions we have in here, and what is the government going to do about it, or what should the SMEs do for themselves? Because sometimes we may look at the government may never give us the answers, but will the SMEs survive these hard times of inflation? This is the Coffee Court discussions, and we are looking at the fate of small businesses and medium businesses in general in regards to the inflation of the country this time round. This is the Coffee Court.
Well, thank you, Jordan Paulson. Tonight in our Coffee Court, we discuss the future of SMEs in Uganda. We are joined by the President of Federation of Small and Medium Enterprise, Mr. Walugembe Kakungulu. Of course, he will be sharing with us his perspective on the future of SMEs, but also most importantly, come the next financial year, URA has not increased taxes, but the target has increased. What does this mean, especially in the future of SMEs? Mr. Walugembe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. The new financial year is coming to the start, but first and foremost, what is the current status of SMEs in Uganda?
The current status of SMEs is that they are still on the road to recovery since the outbreak of the global pandemic in March 2020 and the closure of this economy. Now, since the full reopening of the economy, we've seen a lot of sectors pick up. We've seen economic activity pick up. We've seen optimism pick up in particular sectors of the economy. In others, there's still sluggish growth. The recovery has somehow been moderated by the current high inflation and high commodity prices. So this creates a certain level of uncertainty with regard to how the economy will fare as a whole, because the high commodity prices directly impact on the cost of production. They also directly impact on the consumption power of consumers and their willingness to spend. So all these things create a certain level of uncertainty, but overall, I would say that we're in a much better state than during the lockdown, for instance.
When does the uncertainty expect to end as a person behind
It's difficult. The current inflation is what I would call imported inflation. It's due to external shocks. We have the war in Ukraine. We have the disruption of global supply chains that is not helped by the fact that some economies are still partially locked down. So this will take some time, and I don't think I'm in a position to reliably estimate when things will weather out, but we hope for the best, and we hope that things will start getting better soon.
Let's now widen our lenses. New financial year, new target, big target for URA. And there are no new taxes introduced. What's the implication of this?
And I think that is smart in such a situation where you're dealing in a what I would call kind of a crisis situation. If you increase taxes and introduce new tax measures, one, you increase the uncertainty. Remember, when investors are coming here, domestic or foreign, by the way, they try to look at the business environment. As some of the issues they consider is the tax regime. So a tax regime cannot be continually changing. It cannot be a moving target. There has to be a certain level of predictability. So I think what the Ministry of Finance has done to say, look, we have certain taxes, let's just consolidate, let's improve compliance, let's make sure that we improve their performance. I think that's a wise move. Obviously, I don't think it was wise to increase the overall
Target.
Yeah, you know, in any case, I would kind of cut it by looking at areas of wastage, you know, but be it as it may, this money now has to be collected, and yeah, you see.
But the target is increasing, no new taxes. I see that as a
maybe
a contradiction.
No, it's not a contradiction at all. The government has said they are going to try to plug the leakages by improving compliance. So they want more people to pay the existing taxes. Just introducing new taxes does not result in new money, you know. No, if you introduce a tax and people don't pay, then next time introduce a tax and people don't pay, what's the use? Because remember, a budget is just an estimate of what you hope, you know.
But it's a guiding document.
It's a guiding document, true, but it's just an estimate. So let us see how government can grow its resource base through improving compliance. My worry is that they need to take cognizance of the fact that businesses are being negatively affected both by the pandemic and by the current high levels of inflation, which I fear might slowly evolve into a recession.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the SMEs, what does this now mean to the SMEs, especially those that are just starting up business?
What it means is that you're operating in a hard environment, so you have to really make sure that you have made your calculations well. You know, in such a context, it's not good to be over-optimistic. It's good to be realistic. You know, how many people buy your product? Don't start by assuming that the whole village will buy your product, because people are either poor, or they don't want to spend, or they are worried, so they are trying to keep their cash with them. So as you're making your projections, try to be as realistic as you can be.
So in the long run, if that is put into consideration. Anyway, let's now shift gears to the new model, which we call the parish model. I know everyone holds different opinions about it. Your take as FSMEs?
No, my take is that it's a good model in the sense that you're trying to support 3.5 million households that are stuck in subsistence agriculture to get into the mining economy.
Okay.
If we know that each parish is going to be given 100 million shillings, you know, that, you know, will be used to support, you know, some of these activities and improve access to credit and so on.
Okay.
Government is also trying to ensure that there's good data collection at that level, at the parish level, which is good.
Okay.
So I would say that the idea is good. Will it be put into implementation? Just writing a good idea does not mean that you have achieved your goal.
But it's a good starting point.
It's a good starting point, but how do we self-congratulate before we assess how people are implementing? Because this is the second year of its implementation. So what I'm saying is, I think let's concentrate on making sure that we deliver what we promised, as opposed to keeping on sharing theories. This is what we want to do, this is what we want to do. You do it. Then you can judge you based on what you've been able to deliver or not deliver. So that's my view really. I think the model is good. It seeks to help people who have been stuck in subsistence agriculture. As to whether it addresses all the constraints that have kept those people there is another question.
Okay.
Yes, that can be discussed academically, but now that this is in the budget, money has been allocated, I think the right thing to do is get on with it.
100 million per parish.
100 million.
Is this worth enough to satisfy?
It's not enough. It's not enough, but it's what is available. And I think if the money is not misappropriated, or the money is not misdirected to use these things, it can do something.
What may hinder this model from your perspective as a
What may
president?
hinder this model is if we don't learn lessons from what has failed to work in the past. If we just replicate, they call it business as usual. That may be a hindrance. Two is if we allow this model to be run by government officials primarily, because economic activity is done by private people. You know? So if you don't involve them sufficiently, and if you allow it to be government-led, then there is a trap you might fall into.
Okay, but you can't separate government.
No, we are not
How
saying
do
we
we-
should separate government. We are simply saying government should carve out its role and do it well, and allow other actors to do their role.
Okay.
Government should not seek to do everything. Should not seek to create groups. Government should do its role and do it excellently well.
Okay. What is the role of SMEs in driving this kind of model to
The SMEs
success?
are critical because SMEs are already economic actors. You cannot say I'm pulling X from poverty without understanding this man who set up his own business and has pulled himself. What did he do right? So this model must first understand which SMEs are thriving. Why are they thriving? How can they be a pull factor to others? You know? Government cannot pull people into economic activity, no. It has to be people that those of 3.5 million households can identify with. You know? So that is their role, and I think it's up to the parishes, it's up to the secretariat, to craft a strategy that ensures that it engages all the actors, not just SMEs, farmers, and so on. Engage them.
So just giving them money, would it be enough?
No, giving them money is not good, because that is a business as usual, as I'm telling you. You cannot throw money at problems and they go away. Yes.
But it partly solves the problem.
Well, money should be there to fund a concrete idea. Money is not the start and end of everything. These people are not poor because they have access to money. Maybe they get the money, but they don't spend it wisely. So, for me, the issue is how do we? Ensure that this money is not squandered through limited preparation? I think we have to also give credit to the framers because they put a high component of business development services. How do you capacitate actors with skills and competencies and so on? I think that's a good divergence from previous programs.
What could kill the model from your perspective as a president of the SME?
I've already highlighted what can kill the model. If you allow government to dominate, if you don't pick lessons from what hasn't worked, if you think that this is a silver bullet to every problem, because there are other problems that may have kept those people where they are, and those problems have to be solved. The parish model won't make them go away. So how do you also keep resolving those problems as you implement the parish development? So I think it's not, from my personal perspective, I think we need to give the implementers time so that we assess them based on work done. At the moment, I think we are rotating, we are bordering on speculation.
No, but the money is already put in the financial year, which is coming 2022, 2023. That's already said. It's not a speculation. It's already money.
No, the money is
This
there,
our
but
game.
how it will work in practice is what we don't know now. So I'll be happy if we had this conversation probably 8 months from now.
Which we will.
So that we now look at a report card. Do you have fillers in which parishes? There are 10,000. Can we do a survey? Maybe in 500 parishes. How are they doing? How many jobs have been created? How many people have entered economic activity? Or they have spent all their money in transport allowance and meetings and so on.
But a good leader is one who may anticipate and look at the future.
True,
And given the position you
and
hold,
I think the framers,
as the president,
no, I've given my position. Our position is it's a good idea. You know, we cannot start shooting down ideas before we see them, you know, executed. So it's a good idea. It seeks to solve a real problem. The issue now is how do you implement it in such a way that it's effective.
you said it's a good idea that seems to address the real problem. What are the core problems? From your experience that you think SMEs?
No, so this model really is not, the main target is not the SMEs per se, it's the other 3.5 million people. Well, there might be SMEs to the extent that engage in informal.
Which part will it play the 38%?
But
the model talks about?
issue is you have people who are engaged in the growing of products that are not linked to market. They just grow food, they eat it, they stay. Why don't they sell to market? One, there may not be demand. If people are not willing, you cannot supply what is not demanded. Two, there may be difficulty getting these things to the market. Maybe the roads are poor. Government has done a lot to address this constraint, these cycles. There could be the fact that they are unskilled. This is all they know. Digging, sleeping, digging, sleeping. It might be that they don't have the right attitude to life. They are demotivated.
Which I think this could be your core as the president to address.
My president, my role, really, as I see it, is how do we support SMEs to grow? These people are still at home and in their beds. I wait for them to start a business, then I see how to help them. We call them the active poor. If you are poor and inactive, you are in your bed.
Because you are the voice of the voiceless. You speak for those that do
That's
not,
true.
do not
That's
have
true.
any voice.
And that's why I'm saying let SMEs be involved in supporting their friends to get out of work. They have the experience. In Kalido, the person who has started a business is best placed to help others who haven't started. You see. In Pade, because the context in Pade and the context in Kalido may not be the same.
May not be the same.
Yes. So use those local businesses. Find out what their constraints are. Because these guys you are supporting, they'll face the same constraints. So why not resolve the problem now and work with these people to pull others?
But are you sure that government is addressing the core issues? Or
Government
it's
tries.
just feeding us with the painkiller?
No, government tries. I've told you, for instance, they've done the road. But there are other things they are not addressing. For instance, part of the issues that we see is that the business environment, corruption, too many licenses. You know, if you move in those village roads, those local councils and sub-counties have established their own taxes on produce. Now you want someone to take these things to the market, but it's unviable because he's being asked to pay a fee after every 1 kilometer. And these are ungazetted taxes, not levies. They border on bribes. So if you don't resolve that, it means there's a constraint.
The team you speak for plays a very key role, especially in the development of this country. But do you think they are treated as a core sector in this country?
Government says they're a core sector, but sometimes you don't get that feeling. Sometimes you don't get that feeling. There's been efforts in recent times to prioritize them. You know, if you look at the Small Business Recovery Fund, for instance, if you look at the 636 billion that was put in UDP, if you look at the 100 billion that was put in the Ghana Microfinance Support Center, all this is an attempt to help them to grow, but it's not enough.
It's one thing to put the money there, and getting them by cash, by hand, is another thing.
That's true.
Most of them say they never receive this.
No, it's not free. This is also the issue. These are loans. So you don't just walk here and say, money, send me, therefore give me. No?
Even those who are qualified say they never
Yeah, of course,
access
there are
this money.
requirements. I mean, who determines whether they are qualified? It's the other people who are giving them money. So if you are not giving them money, then chances are they may not have found you worthy. I mean, it may be a good business, but they may not have found you worthy. So for us, the point is government has tried, but there's a lot of work to be done. We need to simplify these processes. Yes, we need money to be safeguarded and all that, but safeguarding money too much again may not help us to achieve our goals.
So what may help us achieve this goal?
Government needs to strike a balance between giving money to the right groups, making sure that people go through a certain system of compliance and so on, and ensuring that money is available in time. If the crisis is now and you take 2 or 3 years to process money, by the time it comes, it's useless. So I think there's some work to be done in those areas.
Okay. The financial year 2021-2022, would say we thank God it's coming to an end and the new one is coming. What is your anticipation?
Our anticipation is that we shall continue on the road to recover, modest recovery. The minister said we are going to grow by 6.3%. I don't know, around 6% or something like that.
That is his thinking. I don't know what his thinking.
I don't think that is realistic. My thinking is we may grow in the ranges of 4.5, and I think the central bank has also said something similar. So, if you have grown at 3-point-something% or 4-something%, there has to be a miracle for us to grow by 6% in the next year.
Okay.
All factors constant. So I think, for me, I would say 4-ish, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. These kinds of ranges, I think, are fair.
Okay. Time seems to be our friend. What would be your last words as we...
Well, we want to thank the Ugandans who wake up every day to run their businesses. It's a tough situation, but you hang in there and try to seek for advice, try to seek for whatever support mechanisms exist, whether by government or by other private actors. We think it's very, very critical at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Walgembe, for speaking to us on this coffee call. Of course, Joram Paulson called today. That's been our area of subject. We hope next time on our coffee court we'll be handling more similar the same concept. Over to you for business today.
Most of these businesses are still struggling, and matter of fact is, with the ongoing inflation, most of them are still on the verge of collapsing. But however, some have adapted and are living in during this time. Most of them have actually changed to a new style of business, into a new line of business, to see whether they can still earn more money from it. But however, the small and medium-sized enterprises still remains as the sector that is shaping up our economy from the perspective of the trader community, with the fact that a number of Ugandans, both literate and illiterate, are under this sector. Not only that, but for those who are unemployed and seeking self-employment, have been able to create room for business and create room and opportunities for themselves from there. And that is it for our Coffee Call discussions this morning. After the break, I do have my guest on set. We're getting back with more of our topic of discussion this time around, looking at local government funding in the country. Stick around.
Smart 24, driving business.